welcome back to my Inside the Studio. I'm here this afternoon with Julia Veenstra, my friend and
Hello.
talented artist.
Hi, Joanne.
And we are in her beautiful home outside Hamilton, or are you a part of it?
No, it's Hamilton. It's still Hamilton. But we're down here on the beach. People don't even realize this part of Hamilton exists.
You're down on the beach.
It's wonderful.
And we're in your transitional space right now, which is very exciting. So you've got great plans for going forward. And you can reveal those to me in a moment.
Okay.
But I wrote down some words about you, which I have always valued and admired about you.
Well, that's nice.
So, innovative, creative, superb marketer, flexible, all-round great person.
Oh, wow. I'll take the all-round great person any day, yeah.
Because you are. And I remember in the early days when I first started out as an art consultant, and I think probably you were one of the first artists. So I've had Remark for almost 11 years now, and you were the first artist that really began to turn my crank.
Okay.
And I remember searching around and saying, who is this woman? I have to meet this woman because her work is so incredible.
Oh, I like that.
And so we've had a great relationship, and we've done some interesting projects over the years for sure. So we're going to just have a little kitchen table chat. Literally, which is great. And did you always want to be an artist?
Yes, I was always, art was always something I loved doing. My mom remembers in grade 3, you know, the teacher saying, did you know she can draw? And my mom was an artist as well, so that didn't, I mean, it kind of made sense to her. She was like, oh, sure, you know, so it wasn't like something new. But in high school, I was always the one that won the awards for art, and then I went to art school, and you quickly realize in art college that everybody else was the best in their high school too. So there becomes a different level of, not so much competition, but at least challenge. And so then I went on to I worked in a book publishing house for about a year, but I was a terrible employee. I much rather work for myself. So I went on to have 5 babies and worked for myself, taking care of them. But then, yeah, that's the beginning of the story. But I always used my art to bring in income.
I think I read somewhere that during those busy years when you had your children, that your dining room was your studio, right?
Yeah. I would work on the studio when they were little. It would be before they were in school. It would be at nighttime. And now, oh my gosh, Joanne, I don't know about you, 7 o'clock hits, and I can't imagine doing anything after 7 o'clock. So I'm like the power of youth way back then. And then when my kids were in school, it was a day job. Like I would set up and I would work during the day.
So that was your job.
Then I would clean up at 3:30,
Right.
make snack.
Right.
Everybody got off the bus, you know, came home. So, yes, so I worked a lot on my dining room table.
So your mother was an artist, and very often I find, you know, that there's somebody in the family that maybe you don't realize it at the time, but of course your inspiration comes from somewhere. So it's interesting that there is some artistic leanings in your family, right?
Yeah, I have several siblings as well that love to paint and create, and several of my children are quite good at it as well.
So you graduated from Sheridan College in Oakville in illustration. And what made you decide to go into illustration? Were there other avenues that were open to you at the time, or was that the program?
Well, I remember being in grade 12 and just going through the catalogs. And I remember illustration and all the descriptions jumped out at me the most. So that was interesting. So I took that course, and the first year was a generic course where you learn all different things, and then you start specializing. And I ended up specializing in book illustration.
Mm.
However, I didn't produce a book until about 30 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was very interesting, and I wouldn't trade for anything that all the lessons. My husband used to say, how does anybody teach you how to draw? Like, how is there taught? But there are definite things that you can be taught.
Wow.
Balance and composition and color and theory and, you know, all of that.
Absolutely.
And techniques.
Absolutely.
Techniques. So I always say, especially to younger artists who are coming up, learn everything you can, because they're all tools in your tool belt, and you can pull them out when you need to.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You've lived in 4 countries,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that journey was that you lived in Africa. And can you describe sort of the influence that particular point in your life had in terms of your artwork?
Well, I've always been a very colorful
Mm-hmm.
artist, and I
Mhm.
remember in college. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I remember in college, some of the other students seemed in my mind to be so much more refined than myself.
Mm.
And I remember painting this still life of corn, and other people would bring in their work, and I would be like, oh my gosh, like I'm like the worst one in the class. And the teacher then put my work up on the wall in the college, like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess she likes it. So that was very encouraging. So I was always a colorful painter, and I was purely figurative for a long time. So when I went to Africa, I painted people mostly. And then the people of Africa were so beautiful and colorful that I had a myriad of topics, like market scenes and smiles and just gorgeous, gorgeous people. And the landscape was dry and dusty. We lived in Tanzania, and we lived in Kenya. And so really the people, their clothing, the fruits and the vegetables of Tanzania were my topics. However, when we moved back to Canada, we moved back to a riot of color in the our 4 seasons and stuff, and I didn't find white people as interesting as black people. You know, the Africans just exuded grace and beauty in the way they wore their clothes and just carried themselves. And not that Canadians are gorgeous and beautiful, it's just changed. So all of a sudden, the color that I was attracted to was our seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I don't really paint ahead. So if it's spring, I paint spring. If it's summer, I paint summer. I paint fall a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I can add some fall into everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to not, like, I don't paint in the spring winter scenes in prep for winter. I'm always like just
You're kind of
following along
in
in the moment. Yeah.
in the moment. I think, and I read somewhere when I was doing my little bit of research on you, that at college, your teachers would try and tell you to tone it down. Maybe it was high school, but somebody told you to tone it down.
Well, I actually, in grade 3, I was told there are no blue trees, Julia.
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about that story.
Yeah, there were no blue trees. And I remember going, well, my trees are blue. Like, I remember thinking, it's a picture. You know, why does it matter if my tree is blue? And now there are blue spruces. There are all sorts of blue trees. So I use any color I want.
I remember the story when I thought it was purple trees.
Yeah,
that
blue
we talked
trees.
about. And how, your sort of thought was when your teacher asked you that, you said, well, doesn't everybody paint trees like that? Like, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit, because it's pretty evident in your painting that you still see trees that are blue and purple and magical and so on. And so is that just really a reflection of how you do see the world? Is that something that is Julia Veenstra?
Well, I use mostly photo reference. I don't paint plain air. So I do see those colors. Like when but then I push it. And then it's a matter of the things I learned in college about color theory and balance, opposite colors, complementary colors, and actually applying all of those techniques into the painting. So at this point, it's like riding a bicycle. So I understand that, you know, blue goes beside orange, and that'll be a complementary POW. But yeah, I just kind of do see it that way.
Which is interesting because you know that not everybody sees it.
I guess. Yeah.
Right? I mean, I look out the window and I don't think my brain would tell me that a tree was blue. But,
Yeah, but as they recede, you know, there's just color theory.
there you go. Yeah. What keeps you inspired? Because your artwork is definitely stylistically very identifiable, I think. I think I could pick out a Julia Veenstra from 100 paintings.
Yes.
And so you have perfected your style, your brand, whatever you want to call it. What keeps you inspired to keep doing that?
Well, I think it's just the more you paint, the more inspiration you get. Because when you paint a painting, or when I paint a painting anyway, there's something will happen, a new technique, a new color combination, and I'll just want to explore that more. So it's not, for me, my practice is not when I'm in the zone, I will work. It's I work and then the zone hits. So I find I work and the zone comes, and I find if I don't work, like this actually, today was one of the first days I was back in my husband's garage, because it's my temporary studio right now. And I was working, and it felt so good. I find that it just, any tension just goes away as I start working. But we had gone away, we'd visited grandkids, we were, you know, it's almost been a month since I've seriously painted. So it's a long time. And I just feel like I just need to do it.
Well, if you were able to go for a whole month, that's incredible, because a lot of artists can't go
Well, it was hard.
beyond a day, really and truly. And I've always been fascinated about this process, and I've never really asked you or thought it through myself. So you use a red underpainting, and why?
I have used a variety of colors before, but red just seems to receive the colors that I want, that I use beautifully. It just, it does, and it glows, and I can let the red kind of show through. Yes. And it just unifies the whole painting.
Interesting. I had to ask the question. So you are, I think you are well loved in Canada, and you are certainly the darling of this area for sure. And in fact, the community has been very kind to you.
Oh, they've been nothing but a blessing.
They have indeed been very supportive of you, Julia. That being said, you work very hard at what you do, and I know that. And you know, some people can look at you and go, Julia Veenstra, and she's enjoying enormous success. But in fact, you know, it's a lot of slogging and hard work and being devoted to your craft every day. I want to talk to you about your success. And you did the poster for the Royal Winter Fair, which was in 2013, and that was a pretty impressive coup for you, Julia.
That was pretty neat. I had somebody say you should apply to do the poster, and I happened to be working on a cow, and I paint cows just to loosen up. And so I'm like, oh sure. So I finished the cow, took a photograph of the cow, and sent it in. And there was just something about it that I was like, oh, I think they'll be interested in this. The Royal Winter Fair poster had never had anything like that before. And then they called me and they said I was in the top 10, and I just knew she was going to win. And then she won. So that was a really fun experience.
Meaning Celeste.
Yes, Celeste won. So then what was super fun is that she allowed me to go to the Royal Winter Fair. I got to sign posters. We got invited to the fancy, gatherings, and that was just fun. Whole new world, that Royal Winter Fair.
For people that don't know, the Royal Winter Fair is the largest agricultural fair in Canada, and it's a really big deal. And we just happen to have
The poster.
the very
Celeste.
beautiful Celeste here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. She's got attitude, huh?
she's got attitude, and she obviously was a big hit, and I'm sure the Royal Winter Fair had never seen a cow like this
And
before.
I have to toot my own horn. They told me that she had been the best seller
Well,
of
there
all
you
the
go.
posters that they've had. So that was a really wonderful thing for them to say. And the neat thing, I had a friend who visited me, and she was at Sheridan College with me, and she visited and said how neat it was for me to do the Royal Winter Fair, because they used to send us to the Royal Winter Fair every year
as school kids.
students.
Yes.
So we would have to go, and we would have to talk, you'd draw, and I would draw cows, and that's where I fell in love with them. And she's like, the poster itself was always like, wow, that's the epitome of, the facts, whoever the artists were to do the poster. So she said, for you to get that poster, she was thrilled for me, so it was nice.
And of course, you do love cows.
Do love cows.
And tell us about this little gem.
So Look at Those Cows is a book that my daughter wrote. It's a collaboration between my daughter and myself. And it's a book with all sorts of cow paintings that I've done over the years. And she wrote the rhymes and I illustrated it. And what's neat about this book is that it was picked up by the dairy farmers of Ontario and put in every grade school in Ontario.
Isn't that
Yeah, so
fantastic?
4,400 copies or something like that went out, and it's in the library of every school.
Fantastic.
Yes, I got a lot of emails from librarians and teachers who said, we stole it, we need to buy another copy to put back
Okay.
in the library. So,
Is your daughter a kindergarten teacher?
no,
or
she's
grade
a high school art and
school?
English
there,
teacher.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So here, we'll leave this
Awesome.
over here.
Well, and I think that I read somewhere also that you, when you were a kid, you were fascinated by cows because you would go to the Royal. And this actually, Look at Those Cows, is an expression that your daughter used to say when you were driving. in your
Yeah,
car.
we would drive, we actually have a tape back then when we had, I don't even know how
Cassettes.
we taped her, but we were taping her singing a song, and as we drove along, we saw a cow in the middle of the song. She stopped and went, "Look at those cows!" So it's very cute. We actually have it on a 30-year-old tape of her
Fantastic.
exclaiming, "Look at those cows!" And when people see my cow paintings, if I have some cow paintings at a show, they will walk by and say, "Look at those cows!
Yeah,
Look at that cow!" So it had to be the address, the title.
And here is another book that you've just recently produced with your daughter. This came out in July of 2020.
Yep, this is There Was a Thing Inside My Shoe. This is a story that Rachel wrote when she was in grade 6. She won at the fair for her story, and I always loved it. It's an absolutely charming little story. It's almost the cow jumped over the moon type. And I always wanted to illustrate it, and this year in January, for some reason, I was like, this has to be the year. So I got to work and created the thing that was in her shoe, and
It's
trying to find,
beautiful.
it's a great little book.
Beautiful.
So I styled the little girl after Rachel,
Oh, love it.
and the thing took me 30 years to figure it. So
Oh, there you go.
there's Rachel. It's so fun. So the thing inside her shoe, and then the thing was just so fun to think about,
Yeah.
and how to draw a thing. And then she had a what in the story, so I had to come up with a what, which was actually really fun because my grandson, who is 6, Amos, he just started sketching, and we kind of springboarded from one of his sketches. So the what is a collaboration with my grandson.
So let's hope
super
this
fun.
book goes in every
Wouldn't that be
classroom
nice?
in the province. That would be very nice.
That would be really nice.
Your square foot show.
Oh my goodness.
So I emailed you when you were elsewhere out of the province, and I said, I have never seen a square foot show this successful, ever. So tell us, because it's just gotten better. For how many years have you done the square foot show?
I think this might be the 7th year.
Mm.
I started a square foot show, springboarding off. It wasn't an original idea. Lots of other galleries do
They do.
square foot shows.
They do.
And I thought, well, I'll do one myself. So the first year, I spent a lot of time and I painted about 40 square foot paintings. And I put them up in my studio and I said, I'm gonna have a square foot show and the doors are open at 7. And I kind of took my cue from the way other shows had been run. And at 7 o'clock, nobody was there. And I was like, oh man, I'm embarrassed.
Were they all your
They were all mine.
Okay.
They were all mine. By 8:30, I had sold out. So that was successful. So then the next year I thought, there's no way I can paint more, because 40 was a lot. And so then I started curating in other artists. So I added a whole bunch of other artists. We were up to 100 paintings. And by day 3, we were virtually sold out too. So by the 3rd year, we were getting up to 150 to 200 paintings, and then the lineup was starting to happen. And we wouldn't open the doors till 7, and it's first come, first serve, so people would stream in. If you had anxiety, it was not the place to be. Because they were all very close, and they were grabbing things off the wall and paying. Now everybody's Canadian, so they were very polite.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was elbowing anybody, but it was quite an adventure. So that took place for 3 or 4 years in my studio downtown on James Street, and I had that every year. So this year, with COVID happening, I knew I couldn't do a square foot show. However, some people are successfully doing it. I know one of my galleries, Palo White Diamond, she's doing one, and she's doing it by appointment, and she's pretty much booked.
Good.
For hers. So hers is going to be great. But so I decided I think I will go online this time. So this time I did not have the artist send me their paintings. They kept their paintings, but they sent me all the images. And we created a website that had all of my paintings and all of their paintings. And I used Instagram, and I used Facebook, and I used email, and advertised. And the artists, part of the deal was that they had to do that too. So there were, I think, 40 artists, and they were all, showing their pieces. I had a lot of artists that were great, and they were doing stories on their Instagram about other artists that they knew were going to be in the show. It was very much a community of support.
Nice.
And at 8 o'clock, October 8th, the show went live. At 8:05, the show crashed.
Oh.
And we had to work. Like I have 4 people in the background on my team working to keep it up, getting it back up. We phoned Bluehost, and they were adding more data and getting it up, and people were getting error messages, and they were getting they were getting things in their cart, but they weren't allowed to pay, and I figured out that meant that piece was sold. But so next year we have to figure out how to say sold. But I started getting phone calls from people across the country, like, I can't get in, and I'd be like, hello, you're breaking my internet, and they'd laugh, and I'd be like, guys, it's a virtual lineup. I can't promise you a painting. I can't take a painting off the wall and give it to you. It's if you get through and you get to pay, you get the painting. And within 90 minutes, we had sold 80% of the work.
Incredible.
80% of the work.
Incredible.
It was. And so I thought the show would have to take 2 weeks. So it was from the 8th, and it was going to go to the 25th. I had to announce on the 10th that the show was closed on Sunday night. Because I virtually had maybe 20 paintings left. And that was, to go another 2 weeks would have been just too long.
How many pieces did you have in total?
200.
200.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they were sold at $250
$250 each. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I told you you were a supreme marketer.
We couldn't believe it.
Yourself.
We couldn't believe it. And we were congratulating ourselves. My team was congratulating. The people, even if they didn't get a painting and they were frustrated, everybody was just so amazed and pleased.
Absolutely.
Like, I didn't get one email from anyone who said, that they were angry.
Right.
That was amazing.
Right. That's amazing. That's an incredible success story.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Good for you. You are moving into other forms of merchandise like pillows.
I've been selling pillows for a while.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
so pillows are made in Montreal, and they can be drop shipped. And there's one on the table there if you wanted to
Beautiful.
hold it up.
Yeah, gorgeous.
We'll hold it up the right way. Here's this
Oh,
way.
sorry.
So this is one.
The fabric is lovely.
Fabric's great, and they're
Yes.
made in Canada. And so I put my images on them, and we sell these. So these are kind of a consistent, sale for the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the books. The people come in, and if they don't have money for a,
Yeah.
$10,000 painting,
Exactly.
they can buy pillows.
Exactly. And what do these retail for, Julia?
These are $65.
65.
The books are $25.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
And
and
so-
they're all available on my website.
Okay, so I was going to say we'll mention your website or we'll post it on the video. But these are lovely quality
Mhm.
and signature Julia Veenstra all the way.
Yeah.
Before we close up the interview, you have made an incredible digital footprint for your own brand, and a lot of artists are kind of stumbling their way through a lot of that. So, what advice do you give to an artist that is trying to move forward digitally? What?
The first piece of advice I give everyone, Instagram is wonderful.
Mhm.
Instagram is visual.
Mhm.
So Instagram is a great place. People are looking around on Instagram.
Mhm.
Instagram has an algorithm that I don't quite understand, all of that, but I do know that if you're chatty, that
So
you
I
will get
hear.
a response.
Oh, I
So I used to think, you need to be an aloof artist, never really engaging, always making them want you.
Mhm.
I learned that is not the case. If you put up a post, here's my big Instagram tip. You put up a post, you kind of hang around your phone for about an hour. If anyone comments, you get back in there and you chat. Because Instagram will reward that, because Instagram is all about engagement. And it'll throw your post up into the Explorer further up. It'll put you in feeds of followers that don't usually see your stuff. It'll put it in there. It'll start saying, oh, people like this. Let's show this to the rest of the people that follow this person. And then I have actually found that I build relationships with the people who make comments. And I see names over and over, and and then I go back and I follow them. And it becomes a relationship, a virtual relationships with this year, we've had to hold on to a lot being virtual. And it's been a wonderful, that's my big tip for Instagram, is chat it up.
Well, I think I've learned more about art and artists in Canada, and really in the US. I would have never had an opportunity to discover the kinds of art that I've seen through Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, joy in color is Julia Veenstra, I must say. It's been so great to spend time with you this afternoon.
Well, it's always fun to spend time with you, Joanne.
Well, and I don't even have to wish you luck anymore, because you are successful at everything that you do, but it's great to be here and share the space with you today. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me.